Hey everybody, welcome back to Suck Less Saturday. It's Neil and Steph. We're back with another kind of a basic thing that we want to talk about, but how much do you consider your community when you think about your safety plan and your self-defense?
Now more than ever, you need trusted coverage to help you win the fight after the fight. The company I trust and recommend is Firearms Legal Protection. They offer discounts on all their plans at the link in the description. I recommend the premium plan.
So, Steph, we had kind of an interesting week last week with SHOT Show and everything that was going on, and got to see and kind of reconnect with a lot of people. It was a great time for me. You got to stay home with
I got to stay
Junior.
home. I got to stay home. We had some of that nasty virus running through, and we decided it was best for me to stay home, and that was very difficult for me in some ways because we actually love traveling and going to the conventions and meeting people and doing SHOT Show. I know that it isn't always in vogue to say you love doing that and going to work and all of that. But frankly, the opportunity to connect with people every single time we get done, you and I come back and just say, it was so good to be in the same space as all of these friends. We maintain these friendships online and through texting and phone calls, but there is something so magical about actually connecting in person that it's fantastic for business and mission and passion and relationships. But we started talking about how important that was personally, maybe not like SHOT Show, but what does that mean for the individual?
Well, you know, the thing that got us thinking about it, I think, was the deal with Sarah Joy
Albrecht.
See, I still can't get her name right. It's weeks later. But you know, having a plan in place and considering your community is something that, you know, I think sometimes we take for granted.
Yeah, we tend to kind of, I don't know if it's the lone wolf thing in us, the lone die alone type thing, where we're talking about our planning and our scenarios and how we want to best mitigate risk and provide for our families. And I think so often we forget one of the biggest pieces and biggest truths, and that truth is you cannot do it all. You can't. You can't be good at everything. You can't do everything. And I think that's why community is so important. Getting to know your neighbors, getting to know your friends, building those relationships. How often have we had the blessing of being able to call our neighbor and say, hey, we need help with this thing. And he runs up and does it, or vice versa, and we're willing to do that. That is an almost priceless commodity, for lack of a better word, particularly if you were to get into a difficult or emergency situation. We're dealing with, you know, not really like huge shortages, but it's not unusual to go to the grocery store now and find you're missing some things that you might want. True. We're having to wait for parts. We're having to make do rather than fixing and replacing things. How much better would that be if you needed something and you knew you could run down to your neighbors and say, I really need this. If it were much, much worse than it is now, that would be an invaluable. And we spend a lot of time wondering how we're going to guard our caches and our treasures and keep people from getting to them. How much better would that be, and how much more would we exponentially expand our resources if we were building networks and connections and sewing into those relationships? Well,
you know, and what you just said gave me a thought here. The very first and only time that I've been on the main channel with John was we broke down a video that was neighbors fighting neighbors. And we see it all the time in the comments of, well, my neighbor's this or my neighbor's that. And we hear it from people all the time. I think we're very blessed. We've got some of the greatest neighbors on the planet. We really do. But you know, I think working and spending a little bit of time on those relationships is an okay thing, and it's a great way to suck less.
Yeah,
right?
You know, in all aspects of just making you a better person. And you can't always choose your neighbors. We've lived in places where there were challenging relationships. We have friends that still live there. However, I doubt, particularly in a suburban setting, that it's everyone.
Right.
And we're tending to really insulate ourselves and become very, very tribalistic, which is a human nature anyway. But I just think it makes us better people. It makes us better defenders. It makes everything about our planning and preparation for our family better if you can build a network and a web of people that you can, and it's not just about you and what you can support. It has to be the same thing. If the neighbor calls and needs a hand with something, we're the first ones down there. We're, you know, when we have extra produce from the garden, you're the one running it over. That sort of thing goes so far, particularly when you're in the same beat space, for lack of a better word.
Yep. You know, I think the great Raylan Givens said it, because you know there's so many people that talk about
Prophet Raylan
right,
Givens.
exactly. If you haven't watched Justified, here's your commercial for that. You should go watch that.
Stop.
But really, you know, one of the things that he says, and I won't swear, but he says if you run into an a-hole in the morning, you ran into an a-hole. But if you ran into a-holes all day, you're the a-hole.
It might
and
be
so you know, these are the things to consider. You know, if we're considering that every one of our neighbors is a jerk and everybody in our community is a jerk and nobody in our community is anybody that will help us, there's one common denominator there. Might be us, and it's something that we need to look inward to, and sometimes that hurts, and sometimes we have to be brutally honest with ourselves. I talk about it in dry fire all the time. Got to be brutally honest with what you saw with your front sight or your dot. Same thing here.
But honesty isn't necessarily shaming either. It's one thing to look and say, nope, I missed that, totally missed it. That doesn't mean, oh, I suck, look at how bad I did, oh, I'm terrible at this. Honest assessment can also be an emotionless assessment, just as another aside to that. That made me think of something that would be cool for an assignment this week.
All right.
Before I forget it, because it just popped into my head. We were talking about an online acquaintance this morning, actually, and noticing that so many of this person's posts over the last month were just negative after negative after negative, complaining. And I'm not saying that to like trash that person. It just got me thinking, what would my posts say about me if somebody was seeing my stuff over and over again? Am I slipping into something that's negative? Am I complaining about people? Am I talking about people? Am I negative about everything? Am I constantly divisive and political and hitting people with my beliefs? And so I think how about for a challenge, you go back through your own, whatever, social media, your Facebook, your personal profile, and scroll back through it over the last couple of weeks and couple months and look at that through the fresh, as emotionless as possible eyes, but be brutally honest. What am I putting out into the world? What am I helping? Ooh. And after talking with Sarah Joy at Chacho last week, that can be a good indicator of where you are at mentally. I know the person we're talking about struggles some with depression. This could be something, if I were a close enough friend, or maybe I can do this anyway, that I would then say, hey, as part of your safety plan, we've noticed that this is an indicator that you're moving in a bad direction. You probably don't see it. You're a little too close to it.
Right.
I've noticed it.
I think that takes a high level of friendship and trust to be able to make that approach.
Yep.
So the assignment isn't go fix the world.
No. It's look
the
at your
assignment is
own.
go look at yourself, right?
And
I love that.
And what are you seeing, and what are you projecting? And then you can and then that can be your stepping stone to start building that community. How can you build your squad of people? How can you find those relationships? This isn't a person I can really go to and say, hey, your stuff is pretty dark. It's not that type of relationship. I hope he has people in his life that he can do that with. But build those relationships, because I do.
We're not talking about John.
No, but if I saw something like that, and John, he is a dear enough friend. We love him like family. That would be the perfect time to go do that. Yeah,
we correct each other kind of on a regular basis when we see things and check in, and because we understand the challenges that are in each other's lives. So you know, we've got that community right now
in the trenches, so to speak.
And so and so I think that, you know, if you're not in the trenches with that person that you see that stuff from, maybe it's time to get in the trenches.
Yeah, and you can't just run and jump into the trench next to the person and give them all your thoughts about their life. What you need to do is climb in and sit with them and visit about some other things and learn about their particular trench. There's nothing more difficult than giving advice to someone on how to fix a situation you don't even fully understand. So that's it. Look at your own, where are you projecting? What are you doing? What can you correct in your own life and community to present the type of person you want to present? And then how do you sew into your tribe and community to build that relationship?
Wow. All right, so this is a deep one this week. It's something completely different. Now, I still want you to do your dry fire, and I still should do my dry fire. Whether I do or not is completely up to me.
But Suck Less isn't just about shooting all the time. It's about being a better person, a better defender.
Exactly. I love this one. You can tell we didn't rehearse this because she came up with that right here on the spot, and I love it. So go back, scroll through your stuff. If you're one of those folks that doesn't do Facebook, then so be it. You are putting yourself out there. You're projecting somewhere. So go analyze that. Just take a look at yourself. Take a look inward once for a little while, a real honest look inward, see where you're at, check in, and then maybe check in with your community and check in with those folks that you are in the trenches with. And if you find that you're not in the trenches with anybody, go get in a trench. This is, our community is supposed to be one where we're here to help each other. We're here to support each other. We're here to defend the those that are less fortunate or less capable than we are. And if you're not doing that, then why are you here?
Hashtag go jump in a trench.
Yeah, and unfud yourself. All right. Hey, thanks for joining us for Suck Less Saturday. We will see you next week with another lesson.